Welcome, everyone, to the Over Under Movies podcast, the show where we take a prominent figure or franchise in the world of filmmaking and ask the simple question, is it overrated or is it underrated? I'm joined, as always, by my good friend. He is the Luther to my Benji. It's Mr. Dylan DeAngelis.
So, is it because I'm bald? Is that a bald joke?
I feel like those characters fit our vibe.
Is it because I'm black? You can say
Yeah. And we'll give the title of Ethan Hunt to our guest here. It's Mr. Shane Emery. Shane, welcome back.
Well, thank you. What an honor to be the manifestation of destiny, Ethan Hunt.
Yes, absolutely. I think you've got the look now. You've kind of got the Mission Impossible 2 hair, I think.
Well, it's the Mission Impossible 2 hair, and then these are kind of the glasses that he's wearing when he's doing the Langley heist in the first movie.
Yeah, that's a great combination look you've got there.
I need the bulletproof armor that he's wearing in 3. Just getting the Ethan Hunt look.
A piece of attire from every film. Yeah.
And I'm also 5'6", like Tom Cruise.
Me too. Yes.
Leader of the Short King Army, Tom Cruise.
Yeah, we love that guy. Sorry, Dylan, you wouldn't get it.
I am not part of the Short King.
All right, boys, I think we've made it pretty clear we're here today to talk about a very special movie or franchise of movies. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to discuss the Mission Impossible series with me. So, Shane, you brought this to our attention. Why'd you want to talk about this?
Mission Impossible is perhaps the greatest film series of all time. I don't think that's a hyperbole. It's my personal favorite movie series of all time. I think the movies almost get better with every single entry. There's also not a single entry that I dislike. There's ones that I think are better than others, and we can get more into that. But the entire run, I think, is fairly consistent. They're all good movies, and even the ones that I don't like as much have something that I enjoy about them. And then there's just really, truly great action movies, especially in the later entries. I think Fallout is a near perfect movie. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Yeah. I love this series, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Hell yeah. I just watched Fallout for the first time yesterday, and that movie slaps. Dylan likes it so much that he was like, I want to watch that too.
It's great. Yeah, Fallout's really good.
Yeah, there's a lot of times when we do a director or a franchise, and we're just watching the ones we haven't seen, and we don't need to watch them together. But Dylan made it a point to watch Fallout with me because that movie is awesome. Also, I should say, I watched 3 Mission Impossible movies yesterday, and the day before that, I watched 12 hours of Lord of the Rings films. So
why'd you do that?
This was a real endeavor. My roommate, it was his birthday party, and he wanted to watch all 3 extended editions of Lord of the Rings and make food for it.
It's really fucking nerdy, but
Happy
good on
birthday.
you for accommodating that friend of yours.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of me, but my friend's idea and what he wanted to do was very cool, and I think everyone had a good time. Now, Dylan, obviously you're the friend I'm referring to here and roommate. Shane says that Mission Impossible might be the best franchise of all time. How would you compare it to Lord of the Rings?
Well, that's tough because the Lord of the Rings franchise is weighed down by the bad Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
Those don't count.
If you're not counting the Hobbit movies, it fucking pales in comparison. I think the only reasonable argument you could make about the Mission Impossible franchise is that it's the greatest action movie franchise of all time. I think that's a pretty good argument to make, especially when you're putting it toe to toe with, what's its main competition? It would be the James Bond franchise, obviously. The Fast and the Furious franchise,
the Bourne trilogy or quadrilogy.
I'd say the John Wick movies are also really good.
John Wick, if you're talking about recent stuff. It's just a really strong series of action movies that has sustained since the mid-1990s with the same star actor through the entire course of the franchise. And
Ving Rhames.
And Ving Rhames, of course, the actor. There are some installments that are better than others, but it's a series that has been, pretty consistent, and it's been consistent enough at the box office that it's been allowed to continue all of these decades later. It's not a franchise that's fallen off at all. And it's kind of like Tom Cruise's baby at this point. Tom Cruise, who is arguably the biggest movie star on the planet. This is the main thing that he's known for. This is his primary series that he does every few years. And at least from what I've seen from the press tour of this movie, this is like his favorite thing to do. He loves doing Mission Impossible movies because he loves doing, the crazy shit that they allow him to do, because he's like the stunt coordinator or whatever in these movies. He's involved in the stunt side of things since, I think, the second one.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the second one, he just wanted to go rock climbing, and they were like,
Yeah.
well, let's put that in the movie. And he was like, all right, but I'm going to be free soloing this. And they were like, great, you crazy
Why don't you
man.
just come film me? I'm going to be doing it anyway.
Right, because that was like the first one where like it was like a big headline that like he had to get like the insurance to sign off on him doing the stunt.
Yeah, because the first one, and we'll get into this, but the first one has way less of that like stunt stuff and a lot more of, I would say, like the espionage and intrigue. It has some stunts. Obviously, him dangling from the cords is super famous. I'm sure that wasn't as dangerous. Very controlled environment. And then the other big sequence was a CGI helicopter exploding, which was not that cool.
So like I've been on the Mission Impossible rewatch, for ahead of the Final Reckoning, and it's interesting to go from the first Mission Impossible where like it's like on a train in Europe and the whole thing is like CGI, and then you get to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning where it's the same third act where like they're all on a train, and obviously there's still like CGI for some parts of it, but for the most part, like again, it's all like that real stunt work, doing as much of it as we can, like as they can, like in real life. And so it's interesting to see again like how the series progressed to that point where like the signature thing about it was the stunts. The stunts are for real, and we're going to use CGI very sparingly.
Yeah, because if you're somebody that's never watched one of these movies before, probably the main thing that you would know about the Mission Impossible movies is that they're the films where Tom Cruise is doing something crazy, and that he's doing something practical. So, Mission Impossible Fallout, he's doing a halo dive out of a plane. He's just doing like a free dive, which is fucking crazy. In Ghost Protocol, he's hanging outside of the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest building on the planet. He actually did that for real. It's just like every movie, it's like he's trying to one-up himself. In Final Reckoning, I think he's like hanging on a biplane or something like that. That's the big stunt.
Yeah.
That's kind of the one that's like in the advertising a lot. I've been watching them all on like Paramount Plus, and every single one after like 3 has like the poster is just the iconic stunt. So yeah, 4, Burj Khalifa, 5, him hanging from the plane, the halo dive and Fallout, and then in 7 it's like the motorbike jump.
Yeah, that's the one they really pushed. Those were cool.
Do we want to start like with the first one and then just keep going?
Sure, we can give that a try. Let's do the first Mission Impossible. This one came out in 96, I think. Old movie. This franchise is nearly 30 years old. So this one, directed by Brian De Palma, who was well known for some of his like thriller type of movies. He's a little bit more serious of a director, I would say, who wasn't necessarily going for big spectacle stuff, although I think he did kind of nail some of that down in this movie. We should also say that Mission Impossible, this franchise is not like an original idea, this movie franchise. This is based off a 1966 television show. So the first Mission Impossible opens with a complete turning on its head of the concept of the show. The concept of the show is basically like there's a super organized spy heist team. Everyone's got a special skill they bring to the table, and then every episode they do a special secret mission. And then this one opens up. How does it open up, Shane?
Everyone dies.
Spoilers.
Yeah, so what's interesting about the first Mission Impossible movie, again, when you're saying it's based on a television show, is it was kind of controversial at the time by fans of the original series because it kills off the whole team in the original, like the first 10, 20 minutes of the movie. And then John Voight's character in the movie, who's like the team leader, his name is Jim Phelps. Jim Phelps is a character in the original series. And he's like the good guy.
He's the main character, yeah.
He's the main character. And then Ethan Hunt is basically Tom Cruise's OC fanfic character that he writes into the Mission Impossible lore, and then makes the main character from the TV series the bad guy and himself the good guy, which is Star Wars fans complain about the sequel trilogy, but Luke Skywalker wasn't the villain in that and
Yeah.
like killed Leia and Han. Like,
Yeah.
but it's a great setup for the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the main thing about the first one is it starts with this betrayal and this massive amounts of death. Now, that team that gets killed off, that's not like the original team from the TV show. That's what they wanted to do. But every single actor from the show refused after they got the sides of the script. They said, we don't want to do that. The guy who played Jim Phelps in the TV show was offered the role of Jim Phelps that eventually went to Jon Voight. And he said no, and he was mad. And there was one of the actors from the original show who walked out of the theater in disgust after he saw the Jim Phelps portrayal. So this was a ballsy move. And if the internet existed in the time of the 1966 Mission Impossible and then this movie came out, I don't think it would have been the success that it is today. I think people would have been mad.
God, yeah. People would have been pissed. Like,
I mean, I'm guessing, at least from like what I'm like reading online of the Mission Impossible TV show, is that I'm guessing it wasn't like a super popular show. It was a show that like people knew about, but it wasn't like the original run was from 1966 to 1973. It went for 7 seasons. And then it looks like it got like rebooted in 1988 and it got 2 seasons. And that was it. So like nobody had heard from this franchise in 6 years before this movie was made. And this is something we see like a decent bit of the time when you're taking an older television show and you're adapting it for a film. Oftentimes it's better to just take like the rough idea of the show and turn it into an original story. It is interesting that they at least had like one character that had an overlap.
Yeah, I think the closest thing I can think of to what you're saying is the 21 Jump Street series and then the 21 Jump Street movies where, they just take the idea and then, again, they kill off the main character of the series at the end of the movie.
Oh, yeah, they do that.
Yeah, so you're right, Dylan. It's not that out of the ordinary for that type of thing to happen, but it was definitely a way to start this franchise off with a bang. It literally is like, this isn't your grandpa's Mission Impossible. This is my Mission Impossible. That's basically what Tom Cruise was saying.
And that's great. That first like 40 minutes of the first movie really, I mean, it sets you up for the whole series when it comes to like expect the unexpected, because Tom Cruise is not the leader. He's not like the second in command of that crew. He's kind of like, he's almost like the rookie. He's one of the younger people on the team. And when he's left as the only one alive, and then he meets Kittredge, and Kittredge is like, well, you're the only one that's left alive. That's kind of suspicious. He's like, I think we're going to have to take you in, Ethan. He's like, I guess I got to go rogue. He
goes rogue, which sets the tone for every other Mission Impossible movie.
There is, except for Mission Impossible 2, Ethan Hunt goes rogue in every single movie.
It's great.
It's so funny. It's so funny that Rogue Nation, they're like, we're going rogue. It's Rogue Nation. And that Ghost Protocol, they're like, we have to initiate the Ghost Protocol. That's where we go rogue. And it's like, shut up. You do this all the time.
Every movie is
I
Rogue
love
Nation.
that in Dead Reckoning, they don't even beat around the bush. Like, the movie starts and he's already going rogue. like he starts and he's talking to Benji, and Benji's like, oh, we have to betray our government. Well, that's just Monday. Like,
maybe I'll rewatch Dead Reckoning after this.
Yeah.
All right. I know there's a lot we could talk about with the first one, but I want to get through these kind of quick. So let's move on to Mission Impossible 2, directed by John Woo, came out in the year 2000. This one, I think a lot of people kind of regard as like the black sheep, or at least the odd one out of the Mission Impossible franchise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dylan, what do you think?
The movie's just kind of forgettable. It doesn't have like the memorable moment that a lot of the future ones had.
I think it has the best line of the series. But...
And like we'll get into it when we talk about Mission Impossible 3 here in a second, but like this is before they really like perfected the formula of what these movies would eventually become. And it's a lot of Ethan kind of like on his own doing like his own little side quest. It feels like a side mission type of a movie. You don't feel the type of like massive world scale implications that we come to know the future films to have, where at the end it's just like him fighting off a guy and there's no like ticking clock or anything like that that's that you're having to worry about. There's less tension. I don't think the movie's terrible, but like I don't know. I've only seen this one twice, and all the other ones I go back to like fairly often.
Yeah, this one to me really feels like they were just trying to make an American James Bond movie. So they were like, well, we'll just have a spy dude, but he's going to be American, and we'll make him do like motocross and climb mountains and stuff. And then, yeah, the plot, I don't really remember that much. And then this is the one
like
really
overt,
where he has like a Bond girl
romance
type
angle to this one too that
yeah,
we don't
yeah,
really
exactly.
ever see in another one.
Yeah,
right.
it's like a Bond girl. Go ahead, Shane.
I think it's like the other thing about like the first couple movies in the series is that like Ethan Hunt as a character changes in every single one. So as you see here, we have the Eras tour of Ethan Hunt. This is James Bond era.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ethan Hunt, where again, like they're just trying to make him James Bond. He has like a sexy love interest, and he's kind of devil may care and cool guy. And this is kind of like my least favorite characterization of Ethan Hunt. But I still do really like Mission Impossible 2, especially when John Woo is allowed to cook. Like I think the final like 30 minutes of the movie are amazing. Some of the best action. And some of the best stunt work in the series too, like with the motorcycle chases. There's some gun fu in this movie, which is something that like doesn't come back in the next movies in the franchise. And again, when John Woo is allowed to make a John Woo movie, it's great. And in the same way, when the first Mission Impossible, when Brian De Palma is allowed to make like a Brian De Palma movie,
yeah, it's
at its peak. And so we can get into this too, is that like there's kind of two different eras of the Mission Impossible franchise, which is like the auteur era and then the McQuarrie era. So we're still in the auteur era, where Tom Cruise's pitch for the series was that like a new director would come on for every movie to make their version of a spy movie.
Let's move on to Mission Impossible 3 from 2006. So there's a 6-year gap between these two movies, and this one's directed by J.J. Abrams. Now, Shane, every time someone brings up J.J. Abrams, you usually kind of refer to him as the ops. You call him Spielberg Light or Diet Spielberg, and then you say, and I am saying this in a derogatory way. Don't get it twisted. I mean this as an insult. So, Shane, what are your thoughts on this movie?
It's okay. Actually, I think it's good. My thing with J.J. Abrams is that, like, I don't think he's a bad director. I just don't ever think that he's a director who is, like, taking a lot of chances. And Mission Impossible 3 is a pretty good action movie that has one amazing performance by Philip Seymour Hoffman that I do think elevates the movie. Take out Philip Seymour Hoffman and replace him with like the bad guy in Ghost Protocol, I think 3 is very forgettable.
Maybe, but Philip Seymour Hoffman is in that one, and he's very good. What do you think, Dylan?
Yeah, I would agree that J.J. Abrams does feel like Steven Spielberg light. It's funny that this movie's only a few years removed from Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg had done a type of like futuristic spy movie in Minority Report in the early 2000s. And if you watch Minority Report and Mission Impossible 3 back to back, if you just showed those two movies to somebody, it's possible that they would say that it's the same director for both. Which is a testament to J.J. Abrams that he is like able to successfully replicate like Steven Spielberg's look to his movies.
Yeah, you watched it with me, and you even said this looks like Minority Report.
It does look like Minority Report, absolutely.
And Minority Report is one of the lost episodes of this podcast because we watched Minority Report to talk about for this podcast.
Yeah, and then we just...
then on the record day, we said, I don't feel like it, and we never recorded that episode.
Nope.
Oh, God.
We just do that.
Oh, I think this one's underrated. Yeah, like you said, great performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman. I think J.J. Abrams' classic lens flares and his attempts to emulate Spielberg really work for this franchise and what he's trying to do. And then this is something that Dylan and I talked about as we were watching, but this is the one that solidifies the formula for the rest of the franchise. Like, it's where Ethan has to work with a team, and it's going to be a team of rotating people, but it's always going to include Benji and Luther. They're globetrotting and all of this stuff that has become, they show you how the masks work. They show you how the voice emulators work. All of that stuff I think is really cool. You know how he makes him read the card so that they can pick up his voice? they had to hire a guy who was a poet. They were like, can you write a poem that uses every like phenome or whatever, every sound in the English language in like one short poem? And the guy did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good on them, because they would just use AI for that nowadays.
Yeah, they would. But
well,
no,
the
J.J.
technology
Abrams was
advances
cooking.
in the future movies where you don't have to do that. But
It is interesting looking at the team here. J.J. Abrams, who you guys refer to as Spielberg Light, and then Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman, who are famous or infamous for the Star Trek movies and the Transformers movies, including Transformers 2, the worst movie.
Oh, wow, your favorite movie.
Of all time. But I think these guys cooked here. I go to bat for this one.
the two things I also will say about Mission Impossible 3, one is a negative, is he bringing up Spielberg, but I think another unfortunate inspiration for Mission Impossible 3 was the Bourne films, because this was like post-Bourne, there's a lot of shaky cam, and I just don't really think it works for this series. But the second thing I will say as a positive is that this movie is arguably the most important because it does introduce the domestic era of Ethan Hunt, where he's married in this movie and has a wife. And that kind of grounds the character going forward. And we can get more into that when we get to Ghost Protocol and, especially Fallout.
Yeah, let's jump into Ghost Protocol now. So this one came out in 2011, so a 5-year gap between these movies, and then this one's directed by Brad Bird. Shane, I know we started with you last time because you hate J.J. Abrams, but I also know that you love Brad Bird, so why don't we get your thoughts first?
Ghost Protocol is amazing. I think this is really where the series locks in on what it is, which is, again, like what Dylan was saying with like the stunt work. This is like the first really iconic stunt of the franchise. The climbing of the Burj Khalifa. They really hone in on like the team aspect. It's like every like team member like has something to do. They're not just like side characters. They also like hone in on like who Ethan Hunt is as a character, which is that Ethan Hunt is a psycho and a crazy person, but he's like dedicated to the mission. And I think this is like one of the best entries in the series. And I think Brad Bird brings in a lot of his sensibilities as an animation director into live action, and also like he loves spy movies, like which you can see that inspiration in The Incredibles. And so I think this was like a perfect fit. And if it wasn't for how good I think the Christopher McQuarrie era is, I would have loved to see Brad Bird continue on with the franchise.
Yep, that's fair. That's good. Dylan?
I think Ghost Protocol is a movie that is held up by a couple really good action sequences. The one at the Russian Parliament, which is a really cool, like sneaky spy sequence, and then the whole Burj Khalifa scene. It's not just him hanging out the side of the building, but also, they're trying to do the deception to Léa Seydoux's character, and they're trying to like copy over the files. Like all that stuff is cool. However, I can't tell you what the plot of this movie was, like, off the top of my head. It's wholly forgettable. I think it's something that they improve on with the McQuarrie films, is that they realize that the ensemble of, not just the main team, but like all of the supplementary characters that you introduce, those are the most important aspects of these movies. And I think that the team that Tom Cruise has around him in this one is just like, it's just a little bit on the weaker end, I think, like when it comes to like charisma. I don't know what Jeremy Renner is exactly bringing to this franchise. I don't think Paula Patton is as strong as the women that we're seeing in the films recently. She's not at Rebecca Ferguson's level. She's not as good as Haley Atwell or Vanessa Kirby. She's not like as magnetic. And because of that, I think that this movie just ends up being a little bit like lost compared to the more recent ones that also have amazing action sequences, but they also have that like banger cast that, we just watched Fallout yesterday. You look at the cast of Fallout and you go, holy God, this is stacked. There's so many good actors in this.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, but Shane, you had a rebuttal?
Oh, not really a rebuttal, but like you were talking about Jeremy Renner. I was going to give some behind the scenes info about this movie. You're talking about like, where does Jeremy Renner fit in all of this? So Jeremy Renner was supposed to take over the franchise.
Yeah, terrible creative decision.
He's supposed to take over this and the Bourne franchise.
Right. And so he was supposed to take over the franchise because Mission Impossible 3 underperformed. And Tom Cruise, Ethan Hunt was going to move either into a mentor role, like he was going to be like the director, or he was going to be the agent who's killed off at the beginning of the movie. And Tom Cruise obviously was not a fan of that. And so he brings on a script doctor by the name of Christopher McQuarrie to rewrite the script to Ghost Protocol, giving Ethan Hunt back to being the protagonist, and then also writing Jeremy Renner, because they have Jeremy Renner attached to the movie, so writing his character in. And that is what starts, this collaboration between Tom Cruise and McQuarrie.
That's cool. I didn't really know that. My thoughts on Ghost Protocol is my controversial take, and my only controversial take about this series is that I think 3 is better than Ghost Protocol, and I think 2 is better than Ghost Protocol. Ghost Protocol is my least favorite of this series.
I'm guessing we're going to do our rankings at some point in this pod.
But... absolutely. But this is everything Dylan said, I think holds true. This is very much, to me, feels like the unrefined version of the McQuarrie stuff. It definitely sets up a great foundation for McQuarrie to build off of later, but it didn't feel like they had that explosive chemistry between all the cast members and the creative team and the crew. All of that, I think, came later. This is still a great movie. They're all great.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect bridge between the McQuarrie films and everything that came prior. This is the dead center of all of that.
This is kind of the bridge between the auteur, we're gonna bring in a new director every time, and then the steady hand that becomes the McQuarrie era.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which, and then, do we want to get into Rogue Nation?
Speaking of the McQuarrie era, let's do it. Rogue Nation. This one comes out in 2015. The first to be directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who I guess started off in this franchise as a script doctor. Dylan, what are your thoughts on Rogue Nation?
Rogue Nation's really good. And it's got a lot of really strong, tense sequences. It is the movie that introduced us to Rebecca Ferguson's character, and I think she's just a breath of fresh air for the entire franchise, and she completely reinvigorates things here in this movie. I think Solomon Lane is a cool villain. The villains in this franchise kind of become villain of the week a little bit. Jon Voight is kind of weird in the first one. And then I don't even know who the villain is in the second one. Philip Seymour Hoffman is great in the third one, but he's kind of an outlier of being a villain in this franchise that you remember. Yeah. It's kind of it becomes a calling card of the movies a little bit, that the villain kind of doesn't matter a ton, and the MacGuffin that they're going after usually doesn't matter a ton. We didn't talk about that when we talked about Mission Impossible 3, but there's a thing called the Rabbit's Foot in Mission Impossible 3. It's never
explained. Which is coming back.
It's intentional.
It's coming back,
It is? It's going to be in the Final Reckoning?
It's in the trailer.
Stupid. It's one of J.J. Abrams. Is it called mystery boxes?
Yeah.
It's like a screenwriting concept of J.J. Abrams, is how he designs MacGuffins, and I think it's great that the rabbit's foot is never explained in Mission Impossible 3, because it's exactly that. It's just a MacGuffin. It's a plot device. And yeah, I think Rogue Nation, once McQuarrie comes on here as a direct collaborator with Tom Cruise, it's basically we're at the point where Tom Cruise is writing these movies as well, essentially.
And he's writing it around his big stunt pieces.
Yeah, exactly. They're what is Tom Cruise doing in this movie? Oh, we're going to have him hold onto a plane as it's taking off. That sounds cool. And that's the first 10 minutes of the movie?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's interesting you bring up the villains. I think this is the franchise's first attempt to make a memorable villain to last for the rest of the franchise, because they introduce the Syndicate, and they give Solomon Lane all this stuff where he makes it personal. It's kind of like Spectre and James Bond, where they're there's a secret evil organization, and they're the antithesis of our secret organization. So we got to stop them. So I think they were trying to make the villain feel have a little bit more weight this time. Whether it was successful, I don't know. I haven't seen Rogue Nation in 2 years, but Solomon Lane's pretty cool. Shane, what do you think?
I love Rogue Nation. I think this is the second best of the Mission Impossible movies, behind Fallout. Mm-hmm. What I really love about this movie is I think this is the best team movie. It's the one where we get the most Benji. Benji is with Ethan Hunt for the entire movie. So you really get to see a lot of Simon Pegg, and him and Tom Cruise have a lot of chemistry together. And then also this is the one that introduces Rebecca Ferguson's character, as Dylan mentioned, Ilsa Faust, who is my favorite character in the series. Yes. And they, like they said, I think they were really struggling to get a well-written female character, and they just knock it out of the park. Especially, and Rebecca Ferguson is so good in the role. She has a lot of good chemistry with Tom Cruise, and she's so interesting, and like also just as like capable as Ethan Hunt is.
Yeah, she's able to match his energy, which is like super important. But for you to introduce a female secondary character that isn't immediately like flagged as a love interest, because it's kind of like, I mean, it's one of the major differences between Ethan Hunt and James Bond is that Ethan Hunt is like kind of sexless outside of Mission Impossible 3 where he has a wife. Otherwise, he's not like seeking out relationships in these movies. He's all about the job. And so, yeah, when Ilsa gets introduced, she's also all about the job. She's got her own mission that she's going on, and she's kind of just overlapping with them. And so I always love it when movies introduce a character that is essentially an antagonist to your main team, and then they become a member of the team by the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's
always
best.
great.
Like Vegeta.
Well, that's what's like fun about this movie is like Rebecca Ferguson is like changing her allegiances a lot. And you don't really quite know what her end game, like what her motivation is until like, halfway through the movie. But like, it's like, again, she's such a great character and she's doing such a great job. Also, this introduces Alec Baldwin.
Oh, yeah.
And Alec Baldwin has an amazing monologue in this movie about Ethan Hunt being the manifestation of destiny that he gives to the British Prime Minister. And it's
While
just
Tom
chef's kiss.
Cruise is in the room in a mask.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, this movie rocks for all the reasons you guys said. Mostly Rebecca Ferguson. Yeah, her and Macquarie entering kind of at the same time just really spices up this franchise.
Yeah,
it's
a good like first collaboration between the two of them, but like they still haven't perfected the formula yet with this movie.
And then that'll lead us into the next one, Mission Impossible Fallout.
Mission Impossible Fallout is where they perfect it.
Yeah,
it is the apex.
So good, yeah.
Tell us about it, Dylan.
Mission Impossible Fallout brings in Henry Cavill as this like foil to Ethan Hunt, and then spoilers, eventually an antagonist. It also brings back Solomon Lane, the villain of the previous film. It also introduces Vanessa Kirby as this like arms dealer, rogue person. She's also the daughter of Max, who is an older woman that Tom Cruise has to seduce for like money that he needs in the first movie. And so there's continuity going back all the way to the first film in Fallout, and we also get Rebecca Ferguson back. We get the whole team. We get Alec Baldwin. He's holding a gun. The cinematographers were okay, luckily.
Jesus.
Oh, yes.
Every single time Alec Baldwin had his gun in this movie, you go, Alec, don't do it, man.
He said this one's not loaded.
He said this one's not loaded.
And then he says, I think this one is, though.
What do you mean you think? You hired the armor. You're a producer.
Stop. We'll cut that. All right. Yeah. Fallout. Yeah. Like I said, I saw it for the first time yesterday. That movie is awesome. And everything that we said is good about all the other movies preceding this, all of that is what makes this movie good. And then everything we said that was bad about the movies preceding this, that has nothing to do with these movies.
There's at least a dozen times in this movie where I turned to you and I went, oh man, that's fucking awesome.
It's so good. Even like the opening scene, the next scene, pretty much every scene.
Yeah, the opening scene with Simon Pegg in a Wolf Blitzer mask.
Oh my god!
Where they completely fake out the nuclear physicist, and it fakes out the audience too, because it makes the audience think that they lost,
that the bombs went off,
and then this movie is called Fallout because it's the fallout of them royally screwing up. But no, it's faking out everybody. That's just the opening sequence. The next scene, almost immediately after, is the Halo jump, where he jumps out of a plane.
Well, that's what's so great about this movie is that it's just from the word go, just like hitting it. Like, like you start out with like that tense exchange at the beginning of the movie with, the plutonium. Luther almost dies. And then you have the Wolf Blitzer fake out and the Halo jump. And then
it immediately goes into the bathroom fight scene.
It's like...
That's the best part.
And then you get Henry Cavill reloading his arms, and you have to rewind when you see that.
Every
One
time.
more time. One more time, Henry.
It can't be overstated either that this is the film that killed MoviePass. MoviePass was a
RIP.
subscription service. I mean, it came
Still
back,
going.
but it's a shadow of itself. MoviePass was a service similar to like the AMC A-List, except it only cost $10 a month, and you could basically see a movie every day for free if you paid that $10 a month. And too many people tried to use their MoviePass to see Mission Impossible Fallout that it crashed the system. They had to refund everyone for their last 3 months of MoviePass, and then that company now is limping
It went bankrupt,
around.
and then it came back, and now it's like it's too expensive for people to use. I
It's
still have
not-
my
it's
original
nothing.
MoviePass in my wallet. That's a relic that I'll never get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good time.
It's the OG.
Like, that year was a great
I
year.
watched so many like shitty movies in theater
too.
because it's $10 a month. Anyway,
Shane,
Fallout.
what's your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, Fallout is just incredible. I think it's like the perfect action movie, like from like the story, like the characters. Again, so you still got that great teamwork. Again, Ethan Hunt, they really honed in on like who he is as a character. Rebecca Ferguson's back, and also it does such a good time. It's such a good job of like tying in other elements of the previous Mission Impossible movies. So as I was saying, in Mission Impossible 3, we find out about Ethan Hunt's wife, but then they get divorced off screen because she has to go into hiding because Ethan Hunt needs to go on more impossible missions. And she comes back in this movie in the third act. And again, just kind of like tying everything up and making it feel very personal.
Mhm.
And that whole final act of the movie, like the helicopter chase to like that
I know
raw...
Jason was losing
Yeah.
his mind watching the helicopters.
Because it's dangerous. Like, this was pre-Kobe Bryant's death, so they didn't know at the time.
R.I.P. Kobe.
None of us knew how dangerous helicopters were.
I know how dangerous helicopters are. They're fucking death traps.
Well, now I know because of Kobe. But yeah, that sequence was great. And what you brought up with Ethan Hunt's wife, that was actually my favorite twist of the film. I had, Henry Cavill being the bad guy a little bit spoiled for me, along with some other twists. But like seeing that Solomon Lane hates Ethan Hunt so much that the integral part of his evil plan is to blow up a small humanitarian village and then make sure that Ethan Hunt's wife is at that village. That's crazy. Like, that's a level of hating that I think is unmatched by any other villain in this series.
It's a level of hating that we all should strive for.
Yeah, it's awesome. I could never, I don't have that
To
many
have
enemies.
at least one hater of that level.
I can't fathom doing that to someone.
No, that's again why I really like this movie too. Is that like the villains are great. Like you have like Solomon just being such a hater, and then you have Henry Cavill who is like they tried this in Mission Impossible 2 to have like a guy who's a little bit on the same level as Ethan Hunt. And it didn't quite work in that movie, like, as the villain. But like in Henry Cavill really is like matching Tom Cruise in this movie.
Yeah.
And you do feel like, oh my God, he could get him. He's such a big, imposing guy.
He's scary.
And he's doing a great job. Like,
Yeah, his physical presence is really strong. This is also the movie that Henry Cavill had to have a mustache for when they were doing the Justice League reshoots.
Yeah.
And that resulted in the CGI Superman face that ruined DC Studios for like 5 years.
Classic.
it was worth it.
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah, good job.
Also, shout out to whoever they were fighting in the bathroom, that Asian guy. That guy beat the shit out of both those guys.
I have a fun fact about that if you want to.
Oh, go for it.
So originally, that was supposed to be a quote well-known actor. It was going to have like a cameo role in the movie, and like it was going to be kind of funny that like like his head gets shot off and like dies instantly. But when they were doing test fights for the movie, that actor could not keep up with Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill, and so they had to bring on that guy from the stunt team to then play the fake John Lark.
Yeah.
But we still don't know who that well-known actor was who could not keep up with Tom Cruise and Henry Cavill.
Well, like probably another Asian guy, I guess.
No, I think that guy was Asian because he was good at kung fu. Like,
well, I'm assuming that they just took somebody that was like on the stunt team that knew the choreography.
But I think the A-list actor would have been someone who you would look at it and say that person's name is John Lark. So,
so you don't think it was like Donnie Yen or like
Yeah.
No, Donnie Yen would do the fight.
or like Jet Li. Yeah, like a.
Oh no, Jet Li,
actor
he could
that
keep
do-
up.
Yeah, it was probably. Oh, you have a theory, Shane?
I think it's either Brad Pitt or Matt Damon.
Oh, I would. Yeah, Matt Damon's a good guess. I could see that
Because
being
he's
the case.
he's about the cameo. Yeah.
Yeah, he does like cameoing. All right, let's. We love Fallout. That's agreed upon. Let's move on to Dead Reckoning Part 1. That's the next movie. It came out in 2023. It is a Part 1, but the next movie got renamed, so there's no Part 2.
It's still called Part 1. That's hilarious. I didn't.
Yeah, it is. So this was also directed by Christopher McQuarrie. This is the third McQuarrie Mission Impossible film. It brings back a lot of the people we love, harkens back to a lot of moments we love, and this time he's fighting AI, so it's topical. I'll go first this time. I like this movie. I think it's underrated. I think a lot of people found themselves getting a little bored by it. I think it's a little bit on the longer side. And then on top of that, it's a Part 1, right? So they don't even resolve the story. There's some critiques like how the AI is not that cool of a villain. It's almost like the MacGuffin and the villain are the same thing this time, which can be rough, tricky. But I love that they brought back the close-up magic from the first Mission Impossible.
Oh, yes.
We forgot to talk about that, but in the first movie, he has a CD, because the year was 1996, and he's going like, oh, is it over here? No, it's over here. And Tom Cruise does that again, and you remember why you fell in love with these movies in the first place. It brings in Haley Atwell as like kind of the new crew member, although she at first is a little bit antagonistic towards Ethan Hunt, as many of our crew members are. And this movie's one major flaw is killing off Ilsa Faust, spoiler alerts. Rebecca Ferguson is written out of this one.
Yeah, and I think it was like because basically she wanted to be out, and that's why they killed her off. I don't know. My opinion on this one's a little complicated because I think that there's a lot of good stuff in this movie, but it's something that just didn't click for me. I count myself among those people that were kind of bored watching this movie a little bit. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Ghost Protocol, where I can appreciate the set pieces and I can appreciate like the character moments between Ethan and Haley Atwell's character. Were like they had some good stuff, especially the scene in the car where they're handcuffed together. It's great comedy. It's really and she's like similar to Rebecca Ferguson, that she's able to like go toe to toe with him. I think it helps that like she's also an actress in her 40s. So it's not like it's not immediately reading as like a love interest or something like that. She's I think she's meant to seem like she's on Ethan's level. But yeah, I just didn't find the story of this one too compelling. And I think my knowledge that this was Part 1 of a 2-part story, I think it kind of like dampens it a little bit. I think if you're doing a 2-part story like this, the first part still needs to be strong. You still need to have like your Avengers Infinity War stand on its own. And I don't know how well this movie is going to stand on its own. I mean, we're recording this before Dead Reckoning comes out, so who knows? Like, it's possible that it ties in perfectly. Based on the reviews that I'm seeing of Dead Reckoning, Final Reckoning, I'm a little concerned about that. This movie's 163 minutes long. The Final Reckoning is 170 minutes long. You know what I'm going to say, Jason?
No, I agree with you.
The movies are too long. There is such thing as having too much of a good thing, and Mission Impossible Fallout is like 2 hours 15 minutes. That's it. That's the limit. You can't put any more jam in that sandwich. Okay, it's just gonna start like flowing out, and that's what happens in Dead Reckoning Part 1. Also, the villain that they introduced in this movie is supposed to be like the final boss villain that has been haunting Ethan for like his entire life or something like that. And it sucks. Like, I'm just not particularly compelled by it whatsoever. They should have just gone villain of the week or something like that. Or bring Solomon Lane back because he was alive at the end of Fallout.
Yeah, or bring back Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill's like the Terminator.
Shane, what do you think?
I like Dead Reckoning Part 1. I do think it's the weakest of the McQuarrie era of Mission Impossible. Again, partly just because of the Part 1 nature of it. I think that kind of you handicap the movie a little bit because you can't quite build up to like the big save the world climax because that needs to be in the next movie.
Yeah.
Rewatching it, I think that this movie is a little overstuffed. There's a lot of plot lines in this, and especially because like you have like two antagonists. You have like this Gabriel guy who is, again, like Ethan Hunt's enemy from the past. I kind of agree with I think it would have been better to like bring back a villain from one of the previous movies just to save time. We don't have to like introduce a new guy. And then also we're introducing like a new team member with Haley Atwell. And then we have like the Entity. And I do like the Entity. I think the Entity is the thing I like about the McQuarrie era is that they really commit to the impossible in Mission Impossible. Like every mission does just feel like, how are they going to get out of this? How are they going to beat the bad guy? And this feels like the end game of that. Like, because you can't outsmart the Entity. Like they say, it's like it knows everything that we're going to do before we do it. Mm-hmm. So like you can't just pull off your mask because the Entity already thought about that. Like, you know, it already knows you're the British Prime Minister. So like I think that makes an interesting dilemma for Ethan Hunt as a character. And also Shai Wigman is in the movie, like trying to be the witness, where
he's playing a cop.
Yeah, like he's playing the guy who's like trying to hunt down Ethan Hunt.
He's
and
Inspector
so you have
Javert.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, just a little too much, and I wonder when we get to the final reckoning, it'll all like feel cohesive and well worth it. This is one of two movies that came out in 2023 that were part ones that also starred Shai Wigman, where the part two like wasn't actually done yet. I'm referring to Across the Spider-Verse, but at least the final reckoning is coming out.
Did they shoot the films back to back?
The plan was to shoot them back to back, but then COVID happened.
Yeah, that's a rough look.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is the movie that the Tom Cruise recording is from, right? Where he's like screaming at the crew to wear masks.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they got these out within relatively quick succession of one another. It's only 2 years apart, a little bit less.
Yeah, I mean, this is also the one that, let me make sure I'm not talking to my ass here. Yeah, so it had like a $300 million budget. It made $570 million at the box office. So it probably broke even, but it was probably close. Yeah. And these movies are considered like big time, expensive action movies. Yeah. And this is like Tom Cruise's baby. And, you know, we talk about it all the time on the pod, Jason. If you're not making money, you're not getting sequels.
And that's why this one's called The Final Reckoning.
Yeah,
the one coming out.
It's almost like, you know, are they seeing the writing on the walls here a little bit? Like, are they deciding to go out on their terms instead of like getting canceled?
Yeah. Yes. So part of the problem was that like this movie came out a week before Barbie and Oppenheimer. Like it was a very unfortunate schedule where like, so all the IMAX screens went to Oppenheimer because like Nolan's contract guarantees he has it for like a month. And then like the Dolby screens went to Barbie. And then of course there was the big Barbenheimer like phenomenon. And so it really took the wind out of the sails of The Dead Reckoning Part 1, unfortunately.
And I'm going to be honest, those movies, and I like Dead Reckoning Part 1, but both of those movies I think might be better than Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. So this year we have The Final Reckoning coming out. We're not going to get into it too much. I will say this is competing with Lilo and Stitch, which yes. I am very curious to see if the live action remake of Lilo and Stitch beats this at the box office, and I think it will.
It's also competing with the second weekend of Final Destination Bloodlines, which made like a shitload of money last weekend.
I'm so excited for Final Destination Bloodlines.
I love Ethan Hunt, and he's asked me to trust him one last time. I will be there. I don't think it's beating Lilo and Stitch. I think the Disney millennial is too strong. People love Stitch.
I know, and a lot of people our age who grew up with Lilo and Stitch, they like have children and they have their lives together, so that's what they have to do. They don't get to enjoy.
I have not seen any spoilers from this movie. Do you think that they're gonna like kill off Ethan in this movie? Do you think they're gonna like really like hardline it?
They said that they were open to doing more movies if they could crack one, but they said.
So you think this movie's going to be as open ended as any of the other Mission Impossibles?
I think it's going to put more of a bow on it, but
I think this will be the conclusion to Ethan Hunt's character. I don't think they're going to kill him off because I feel like Tom Cruise cares way too much about this character to kill him off, like to give him like a tragic ending.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
if you've seen him on the press tour, he's talking about like, oh, I'm going to be acting until I'm 100 years old.
yeah,
I got
and
40 more years in me.
yeah, and again, it's these movies to Tom Cruise and this character to Tom Cruise. It's not like Daniel Craig, where like he just hated James Bond, like, and was just like, write me out of these movies. I'm done. I want to go do my Southern accent with Ryan Johnson and solve mysteries.
Yeah, Tom Cruise loves being Ethan Hunt. Ethan Hunt is like a metaphor for Tom Cruise and his career. Like, the entity is surely his commentary about, jobs getting replaced by.
Absolutely. As this
things.
franchise has gone along, the lines have continuously blurred between where does Ethan Hunt end and Tom Cruise begin.
Yeah.
They are slowly morphing into just one being. When you see Ethan on screen, you can basically just say that's Tom Cruise because he's doing all the stunts. It is actually him doing all these things.
That's why there's no way they're going to kill him.
When he's flying that helicopter in Fallout, that is Tom Cruise flying that helicopter. It's crazy. They rigged the helicopter knowing that they didn't have to shoot around a body double as the pilot because it's Tom Cruise. He's an insane person.
And he thinks he's going to live forever. Like,
one of these stunts is going to go wrong.
Yes.
It's going to. It just has to happen one time where things do not go right, and that's
that doesn't happen to guys like him. The first Mission Impossible movie, the film's promotion in Germany was complicated by Bavarian minister president ban of Scientologists from joining the state civil service in response to Tom Cruise's affiliation with Scientology.
Tom Cruise is a Scientologist? We didn't talk about that.
Basically, they had a hard time marketing the film in Germany, and then the U.S. State Department and the United Nations had to step in, and John Travolta arranged a meeting with Bill Clinton and National Security Advisor Sandy Berger. Anyway, John Travolta had to get the president at the time to talk to Germany to let them show the movie Mission Impossible. That's one of the fun facts I wrote down.
That's insane.
All right, we're going to move into our rankings of these movies, but first we're going to play trivia. Mission Impossible trivia, along with some other trivia. So you guys keep track of your own points, okay? All right, you guys race for the answer, all right? It starts off easy. Who plays the character Ethan Hunt in all the Mission Impossibles?
Tom Cruise.
All right. 1 point for Shane.
Shane got it.
What is the name of Ethan Hunt's love interest portrayed by Michelle Monaghan?
Her name's Julia.
What's her last name?
I have no idea what her last name is.
All right. You get that point, Dylan. Who is the main antagonist in Mission Impossible Fallout?
Solomon Lane or John Lark?
John Lark, yeah. I guess it's...
Either one. But Dylan, that point goes to you. What is the name of the villainous AI in Dead Reckoning?
The Entity.
Good job. Which movie features the Halo jump?
That would be Fallout.
Yep. That one's for Shane. Name every director of the Mission Impossible movies in order.
Brian De Palma, John Woo, J.J. Abrams, Brad Bird, and the Christopher McQuarrie.
That was so fast. Good job. Name 2 traitors from the Mission Impossible series. 2 people who betray the team.
John Voight.
Okay. You can name the actor. Name. That's fine.
And
Billy Crudup from Mission Impossible 3.
Okay, you guys are really going for the actors there.
And then Henry Cavill, does betray the team.
Good. Good. You guys got all 3 of the main betrayers. Which movie has Tom Cruise hurt his ankle? IRL.
It's Fallout.
Oh, Fallout, yeah.
Yeah, the right answer is probably all of them, but he specifically shattered his ankle on that one. In which movie does a character say, "This is not mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's Mission Impossible"?
That's Mission Impossible 2, spoken by Hannibal Lecter.
Yes, that's my favorite line from this series, and he's basically looking directly at the camera when he says it. What's Tom Cruise's real name? What is Tom Cruise's real name or birth name?
Oh, God. I remember looking this up once. I don't remember.
His name is Thomas Cruise Mapother IV. So he's a 4th. Did you know that? I don't know what his dad did. Oh, his dad was an electrical engineer. All right, now we're going to play Name That Movie based on the Letterboxd Review. These are all spy movies. I'm going to read 3 reviews for each movie, unless you can get it on the first one. The first review comes from Mark Mooney. They gave this 4 stars, and it's just a quote from the film. The quote says, "I thought Christmas only comes once a year." James Bond. It's a James Bond film where he says, "I thought Christmas only comes once a year."
Okay.
Okay. The next review of this movie says, "I miss the movie magic of yore, when studio bigwigs spent money trying to make us believe a man with no pain receptors could not die of a horrifying infection, and Denise Richards could be a nuclear physicist."
Is this Die Another Day?
No.
No.
Is it GoldenEye?
No. You guys are close. You're right on the money.
Oh, it's I know which one this is. Oh God,
What's the third review?
Here's the third review. This person gave it 1.5 stars and said, "In retrospect, the world was probably enough."
James
the
Bond,
world
the world is not enough.
It's not enough.
Good job. All right. So on the third review, you guys got it.
Teamwork.
So here's the second movie. Again, this is a spy film. This is a 5-star review from Will. And he said, "They say COVID makes you lose your taste, but my love for this suggests I never had any to begin with." Shrug emoji.
It's a spy movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the James Bond.
It's just a spy movie.
COVID makes you lose your...
Don't worry about the COVID that much. He was just saying,
yeah.
All right, we'll move on to...
You're
okay.
saying the movie's bad, right? Like...
Yeah, we'll move on.
We'll see. We'll see.
This review comes from Haley. She also gave this 5 stars. She said, "Honestly, before I rewatched these movies, I never realized how much they all mesh together in my memory. It feels like one big movie instead of 3 separate ones. Like I had watched them so much growing up that they simultaneously formed into one movie instead in my brain. LMFAO. Also, there's no world in which I rate a movie with a Britney Spears dancing, singing cameo lower than a 5-star.
So is this the first Austin Powers?
No.
Oh, this is Austin Powers and Goldmember.
It is Austin Powers and Goldmember.
Goldmember is this,
Where Tom Cruise cameos as Austin Powers in the beginning of the... Yeah, basically.
It's Austin Pussy. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Austin Pussy.
Where it's Kevin Spacey as Dr. Evil, and then it pans over to Mini-Me, and it's Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito, yes.
It's so good. The third review for that one just says, "Do you think Beyonce claims this, or has she wiped it from her memory?" So the third review is always the one that's supposed to give it away.
Beyonce is great in it. I think that's her acting debut.
All right, this is the third movie in our Letterboxd reviews. Again, this is a spy movie. This one's not a James Bond or Austin Powers. It's something else. So the first review comes from Clementine. She gave it 4.5 stars, and she said, "People are like, this is bad, then rate Deadpool 5 stars."
Okay.
Is it Cat in the Hat, Mike Myers?
It's not. No, I agree with that. I agree
Myers
with
on the
that,
brain.
absolutely. This next one says, "Never send a man to do a woman's job." And then it says, "Still better than Citizen Kane." This comes from Chris, who rated this 5 stars. Never send a man to do a woman's job. Still better than Citizen Kane.
It's Miss Congeniality?
It's not Miss Congeniality. That's a great guess, though.
Is it Atomic Blonde?
It's not Atomic Blonde. I'll move on to the last review here. This comes from Lindsay, who also gave it 5 stars. "This movie has literally everything you could ever want in a movie, and it is perfect in every way, and no, I do not accept constructive criticism. Unrealistic face masks, Tim Curry, explosions, car chases, a heist, Cameron Diaz, white girl dancing to Baby Got Back, Drew Barrymore licking a steering wheel, Lucy Liu spewing BDSM communist rhetoric, more explosions, hacking, the male gaze, yodeling. It is objectively perfect." This is Charlie's Angels.
I've never seen the Charlie's Angels movies.
That movie is so good. The first one's great.
Have you seen the remake with Kristen Stewart?
Yeah, and that's fine too. But the first one's really good. It's very memorable. All right, good job. You guys got all of them by the third review, and then the second one you got on the second review. So nice work. We're gonna move on to a game called Name That Spy Movie, based on me humming. So We don't want to get copyright stricken during this podcast, so we can't play the actual theme songs of these movies. But I'm just gonna like go do 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 do, and you tell me what the name of the song is. All right.
Sounds good.
Okay. do 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 do
That's Mission Impossible.
do. Yes, good job. All right. Dun 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 dun. I don't really know how the rest of it goes.
Is this James Bond?
No.
Is this Bourne?
No.
What, I don't know any other spy themes.
That one was Austin Powers, and I did it really good.
Oh.
Right?
Okay,
I did it right?
No, I hear it now.
It's just my low voice probably threw you off, because that's a much higher pitched sound than what I was doing.
It's really manly.
I'll do a falsetto for if I need to. All right, here's the third one. Dun 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 dun. Yeah, good job. All right. Here we go. Here's another one. Wait, how does this go? No. Hold on. Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
Paul McCartney. Live and Let Die.
Yes.
From Shrek 3.
Yes, exactly. the Frog King's death in Shrek 3. Classic.
Someone better be
film.
dying.
All right, here's the last one. Yes, good job. All right, great job, guys. This is all for social media content. This is the stuff that's really easy to clip up and people like to play along, so we're going to subject them to that. We're going to bury that. All right.
Gotta get those TikTok views.
All right, last game we're going to play before we get back on track. This one's just name that spy movie based on me just generally describing it. So I have a list of spy movies from Letterboxd, and I'm just going to be like, hey, what's this one? All right, so see who can get it first. You guys can race for this one. All right, this is a spy movie where like a dude, and I've never seen this, but I think he loses his memory, and he's a spy, and...
The Bourne Identity.
Jason Bourne. The Bourne Identity, yeah.
Yeah, we can give that to both you guys. Let's see. This is a spy movie where there's a woman, FBI agent, and she has to go undercover.
Miss Congeniality?
Yes, in a beauty pageant. Good job. This is a spy movie that stars someone who played Superman and
The Man from Winkle?
Yeah. I was going to say someone who played a Winklevoss twin, but you got it without that hint. This is a spy movie where Elijah Wood plays a legendary hero.
Oh, Spy Kids 3D Game Over.
Spy Kids
The guy,
3D
he's
Game
going to
Over.
get us to level 4.
Good job. And then we'll do one more. This is a spy movie where, Mr. Bean's in it. And they made 3 of these.
Oh, I think...
What's Rowan Atkinson in?
Apparently, it's a whole franchise.
I've heard it's like very popular in the UK, right?
I think
like
so.
It hasn't really taken off in the States. I know I've heard of this. I don't. It's like their Naked Gun.
Yeah, exactly. It's a parody type movie.
And it's not Mr. Bean. It's some other character that he plays.
No, this movie is called Johnny English.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one I saw like at Blockbuster, but I never rented it. And I don't know why, because I like Mr. Bean.
You gotta have something on those shelves.
All right, boys, good job. We got some good content, I think. People really enjoy playing along to that game. Let's move on to just ranking your Mission Impossibles. Shane, do you have a list of your rankings?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I would say Fallout obviously is number 1. Then I would say Rogue Nation. Like those 2 movies I think are just unparalleled, the best. And then I'm gonna actually go with first Mission Impossible. I love the simplicity of it. It's just a really good spy movie.
Mm-hmm.
And just the De Palma, when he's allowed to cook, that whole sequence in Langley is like still one of the best action sequences. It's so tense and so cool. So Mission Impossible 1. Then I'm gonna go Ghost Protocol. then Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible 2, and then Mission Impossible 3.
Cool. Dylan?
For the longest time, I had the first Mission Impossible as my number one. It is no longer my number one. It's Mission Impossible Fallout. Then I have the first Mission Impossible, specifically the first 40 minutes of the film, where it's just that mission and the whole crew dying. I think it's so cool. It's such an awesome setup for the entire franchise that I gotta hand it to him. My third one is Rogue Nation, and then Mission Impossible 3, then Ghost Protocol, then Dead Reckoning, then Mission Impossible 2 is my last one.
Good list. It looks like all our lists start off pretty similar with our top 3 spots. I have Mission Impossible Fallout, then the first Mission Impossible, then Rogue Nation, then I have Dead Reckoning, and then Mission Impossible 3, then Mission Impossible 2, and then Ghost Protocol I have at last. Ghost Protocol, like I said, I know that's a little spicy, but that movie to me feels the least distinct out of all of these. Outside of the Burj Khalifa scene, I don't think it has as strong an identity as the rest of them. So I just really like all of the other ones just a smidge more, even 2, which
I've
is
been seeing a lot of people post like their tier lists on Twitter like in the last like week or two. I mean, there's some that are like clearly rage bait. The ones that are like, oh, Mission Impossible 1's in the F tier because it's old.
Yeah.
Get the De Palma fans on them.
But, like, I mean, generally, it's a series that's, like, fairly consistent, and so I think you can kind of, like, mix and match, like, movies in different orders and it not be, like, completely blasphemous. It seems like Fallout is the main one that everybody loves Fallout, and then after that, it's kind of, like, personal preference. What are the elements of the movies that you prioritize your enjoyment? You know, are you somebody that prefers, the ensemble casts being a strength? Are you doing it purely based on the action set pieces? Are you making your determination based on Tom Cruise's hair? How ridiculous his hair is in the movie?
And then it's 2. Like, we didn't talk about 2 has the best hair.
Yeah, people that like
His
2 the
hair's
best.
great.
It's all about the hair.
All right, boys. So that's a lot of talking about Mission Impossible we've done. Now we have to get this really back on track and just say whether we think it's overrated or underrated, this franchise. I don't think we need to argue too much, but what are your overall thoughts? Dylan, you go first.
This is tricky because at the beginning of the pod, I did say that it's arguably the greatest action movie franchise of all time. And it's interesting because it's kind of like existed in its own space a little bit throughout the 2000s and throughout the 2010s. It's just kind of been like Tom Cruise's baby. And, these movies make a decent amount of money, but they're not like giant box office hits by any means. So it's tough. I think we didn't do like the objective rating side of this here. I didn't look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores to see like where these movies are generally rated. I like it. In my heart, I want to say that these are still underrated, but given like the amount of hype they're given to them, I think there's justification to say that they're a little bit overrated overall, in that like they're really good action movies and they don't ever really elevate to anything above that. These movies don't get like Oscar recognition or anything like that. I mean, they probably will now because they're adding the stunt category to the Oscars, but other than that, you're not seeing like Tom Cruise get nominated for Ethan Hunt or anything like that. You're not seeing these like strong directors that have made Mission Impossible films that they're not elevating it to a level where they're being recognized by the Academy. So it's weird. These movies are like, they stay in their lane. They know exactly what they are. So it is a difficult one to try to like rationalize.
Yeah, Shane, what do you think?
I mean, underrated. Give Fallout an Oscar. Like, you're talking about they should. Like, I think it's they
doesn't have any Oscars, and that's a mistake.
Well, like they nominated Top Gun Maverick like later, and I like Top Gun Maverick, but it's not as good as Fallout. Yeah, I think these movies are great, and yeah, I would say underrated in the way that's like, yes, they're action movies, and I think sometimes people just write them off as action movies, and I think there is a lot more going on in these movies than people give them credit for, like with the filmmaking. And how, I think especially McQuarrie, like, blocks and stages a shot is just really smart and well thought out. I think the acting is great. Like, I really do think that, like, there's action movies like the Transformers or even the MCU movies, and then there's Mission Impossible. Like, they are really, like, we're talking about Dead Reckoning not being as good as the other ones, I still think Dead Reckoning is like one of the best blockbusters. Like it's still better than every other blockbuster that comes out. So to me, it's still like a cut above. Like these aren't just action movies; they are really well made films.
I'm inclined to agree with you, but I might have just been like persuaded by you just saying all that stuff. I think there is more to this than these just being action movies. It is interesting, like you brought up John Wick earlier, because I love that franchise, and I don't know if I like Mission Impossible more than I like the John Wick franchise. I will say that the John Wick franchise, I think, suffers a little bit from all of them feeling the same after the first one, whereas Mission Impossible, most of these feel pretty distinct, so that might put it a little bit ahead. But yeah, this certainly feels like a franchise where at this point, if you buy a ticket to Mission Impossible, you know that you're in for a good time, like you're getting your money's worth compared to other blockbusters, which are a gamble, or other indie films, which are a gamble. Like this is like one of those movies where you know that you're going to be eating good. Like the thing I'm questioning is like, would people who don't like action movies find any value in this franchise?
People that don't like spy movies.
Yeah. And I'm having a hard time thinking about my friends who don't like these types of movies and trying to convince them to watch it and then being like, see, it's so good, right? Like, I don't know if they can really cross that threshold into like, even people who don't like action movies will love it. So I'm having a hard time coming up with an angle for why this is underrated. I'm just going to say no, I don't know. It is a little underrated at this point because like no one went to see the last one and people should have seen it. So maybe it is underrated now.
Yeah, they're kind of coming back around at this point because they're underperforming a little bit at this point in the franchise.
And people need to show up. Like, you know,
it doesn't feel like, you know, is this an Avengers Endgame situation? Like they're not going out with a bang with this franchise. It almost feels like they're finishing it because they feel like it might not be up to them to finish this franchise. Otherwise, that they might just get the plug pulled on them, and then, you know, they don't want their last movie to be some sort of cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's a tough look. I mean, Shane pointed out a lot of reasons why this didn't flop, but it underperformed at the box office, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and I have a feeling that The Final Reckoning's also not going to do that well, so we'll have to see. So, like, with that in mind, I would say this is kind of like an underrated franchise, like at this specific moment in time.
Yeah, but it's interesting that, like, the Mission Impossible movies are kind of a blind spot for a lot of people that are otherwise into action movies. Mm-hmm. It's almost like people are aware of the action set pieces, but they don't watch the movies.
I think there's something about it that feels a little impenetrable to new fans because it's such a long franchise, and there's, you know, if you want to see the new one, there's 7 movies that came out before this. And even when Fallout came out, I hadn't seen any Mission Impossibles, so I had no interest in seeing Fallout in theaters because I was like, oh, well, I don't know anything about that franchise. Now I understand how episodic it is.
Yeah, and the movies do a really good job at, like, expositioning elements of the previous films for people that might be walking in with, you know, as the 6th one is the first one in the franchise you've seen.
Yeah, now I understand that. I almost wish they had done they had dropped the numbered ordering at the beginning and just always called it Mission Impossible blank, like James Bond.
Right.
Because going 1, 2, 3 Ghost Protocol, by the time Ghost Protocol came out, I was like, I can't watch Ghost Protocol. I haven't seen 1, 2, or 3. Any other thoughts, Shane?
Like I said, I love this series, and I think it's just been very consistent. I love how much effort the cast and the crew puts into these movies. Like, you really do see the effort and the money that's put on screen. Sometimes when you watch Blockbuster, you don't see the money. With Mission Impossible, you see the money. Like, you see the effort that went into this movie.
I really appreciate that now, too. Dylan, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, these movies are always on my go-to list of if I just want to pop in a film to enjoy it. They're good. Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie, they teamed up with Edge of Tomorrow, which is another film that we did on the pod. It's directed by Doug Liman, but McQuarrie did the screenplay for it. These are two guys that just, like, they always make good movies. And I'm sure even if they stop making Mission Impossible films, whatever McQuarrie and Tom Cruise go on to do after this is also going to be really cool. So, yeah, these are just solid movies. And you don't have to, if you're somebody listening to this and you haven't seen any of them, you don't have to start with the first one. You can honestly just start, you know, wherever you want in the franchise, and I think you'll be okay. Which is, a testament to the strength of the movies, that you don't have to watch them all perfectly in order and know all the references from the previous ones. I think that's what makes a good action movie franchise, is that you can just kind of like sit back and enjoy it. So yeah, these are solid movies, and I'm excited to see the last one. Hopefully, the reviews are underselling it.
Yeah, we'll see.
They're not true believers like me, so Final Reckoning's for the true believers.
Yes, I agree with everything that was just said. Guys, go check out Final Reckoning in theaters, especially if you already like the franchise. If you don't know anything about Mission Impossible, check it out.
See it in a movie theater. If you're going to see the movie, see it in a movie theater. This is like the perfect franchise to see it on the biggest screen you can.
Yeah, it's we need more people to go to the movies. Like, this is not the only franchise that's suffering because people don't want to go see movies anymore. But yeah, love movies, love Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise is doing his best to get people back. But that's going to do it for our discussion of Mission Impossible, guys. As always, check us out in various places: YouTube, Spotify, Apple. You can join our Discord to have talks with us like this one. Maybe we'll do trivia in there. I love trivia so much. What else? Check out our Patreon page. You can support us that way. We always love the support. Anything, if you want to give, you can, but there's also a free tier now, so you can just come support us without even having to really give up any money or anything. Like, it's just a sign of you're friends with us, and we appreciate that as well. This podcast will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Bye-bye. All right, Dylan, add an explosion effect in there at the end. Perfect, thank you.